Republicans thought would subside following the election. But instead, it's becoming increasingly shrill, resorting to even greater sensationalism and hyperbole. Now, 8 days out from the election, it is clear indeed that left-wing polls and media mean to persist in their attacks on Mr. Trump. That despite the fact that he is, after all, the president-elect, and the national liberal media has a higher duty, one would think, as the people's watchdog, as the fourth estate, to report honestly and straightforwardly on all our elected officials, all the issues and policies that affect our country and our citizens. Instead, we'll show you tonight some of the egregiously negative and fiction-based headlines that the left-wing media is running. For his part, Mr. Trump seems inured to the left-wing nastiness. He's dismissive of the left's efforts to project his transition process as halting and in tumult. Mr. Trump taking to Twitter to say, quote, "Very organized process taking place as I decide on cabinet and many other positions. I am the only one who knows who the finalists are." And top advisor Kellyanne Conway says her boss is hard at work culling through the best of the best.
He's very happy with how transition is going, and from his perspective, he's been presented with any number of choices within each of the agencies and departments, and he's making those tough decisions. I mean, if anything, he has obviously more choices than one to fill in each position, so we have an embarrassment of riches.
There was a steady stream of cabinet candidates filing through Trump Tower today, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn among them. Sources say he's being considered a possible choice for a national security advisor. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas said to be in the running for Secretary of Defense, a Harvard Law School graduate who passed up a potentially lucrative law career to serve as platoon leader in Iraq. Also making the rounds at Trump Tower, former Goldman Sachs investment banker Steve Mnuchin, who is seen as the likely choice for Treasury Secretary. We'll be talking about the Trump administration in waiting with former Reagan White House political director Ed Rollins, RNC Rules Committee member Randy Evans. And also with me tonight, Clinton Cash author Peter Schweizer, the best-selling author and the man who helped the anti-establishment wave succeed in the UK, Nigel Farage, with us. A lot to talk about tonight, including senators of both parties sticking to the status quo. Republicans voting to keep Senator Mitch McConnell as their leader after the House voted to keep Paul Ryan. Democrats tapping Senator Chuck Schumer to replace the ever-nasty Harry Reid. Two politicians who are strapped to the donor class, not as eager as Ryan and McConnell to do the bidding of the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Roundtable, but then again, not overly resistant either. Our top story tonight, Donald Trump going about the important business of appointing his administration's top officials and, of course, his cabinet, talking with congratulatory world leaders as he weighs his decisions on who will be joining him in leading the nation. Trump Communications Director Jason Miller today stressed the president-elect is ensuring that the right people are being appointed to his cabinet.
I think one of the things that's important for people to know is that we're not going to rush to put names forward until we're absolutely sure. And we're going to make sure that they're people that we're confident are going to pass confirmation, and they're going to be people that we think that can implement the president-elect's vision.
And so how does the left-wing national media style their so-called reporting? By acting as lackeys of the left, of course, trying to manufacture chaos, at least the perception of it. All of that as we've just ended the first week of this process. The New York Times headlined an article with this amazing statement: "Firings and discord put Trump transition team in a state of disarray." The Washington Post with this little beauty: "Trump pushes back amid signs of strain in transition." And USA Today writing this headline: "Amid reports of turmoil, Trump and Pence reshuffle transition team." Clearly, the left-wing national media is still intent on creating negative stories, negative headlines, creating what is simply straightforwardly propaganda. The left-wing national media aligning themselves with all who would seek to undermine the president-elect, most of whom American citizens would expect to be on foreign soil, not members of our fourth estate. House Republicans also have some soul-searching to do if they're going to be ready to implement the Trump agenda come January. We have noticed here at Lou Dobbs tonight that nearly the entire House leadership, including Speaker Ryan, Majority Leader McCarthy, and Majority Whip Scalise, have been pushing their hashtag Better Way agenda on Twitter. Now, I personally suspect there's just confusion, that they wouldn't intentionally do this with a brand that has no equity. And nearly 100 of their Republican colleagues have followed their lead. It's almost as if the House members think the nearly 61 million people who voted for Donald Trump and his agenda had given the House of Representatives some kind of mandate. Now, I'm pretty sure they meant to use the correct hashtags. A reminder, if we may, to the Speaker and his leadership team, the correct agenda hashtags for the mandate are these. Hashtag Make America Great Again. Hashtag America First. I know, sometimes there on Capitol Hill, the crush of the people's business can create some strain and some hardship, even confusion. Hopefully, we've been helpful here tonight. Well, joining me to be helpful to all of us, two extraordinarily wise veterans of political wars in Washington, from what on rare occasion were somewhat petty to the immense and the historic. Member of the RNC Rules Committee, chairman of the Republican National Lawyers Association, former senior advisor for the Newt Gingrich presidential campaign, Randy Evans, and Great America PAC strategist, former Reagan White House political director, veteran of 10 presidential campaigns, Ed Rollins, the dean himself. Great to have you both here.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with that confusion in the House of Representatives, gentlemen. Hashtag Better Way. I don't remember that being on the ballot.
Well, they can just add Better Way with the Trump agenda. And if they basically accomplish that, they don't have to change their tag. But that's the agenda they have to deal with. Whatever agenda they may have had in the past, it's in the past. This is the agenda for the future. They're going to be measured on how successful they are. Randy's worked on the Hill. He's advised two speakers. And at the end of the day, if a president of your own party is there with an agenda, you've got to move that agenda forward.
What do you think, Randy? Is it just some confusion, or are they actually trying to put up a competing brand here with the press? Surely not.
No, and I think they missed the message of the voters. The voters said, we don't want better, we want best. We want to make America great again. We don't want to make it better again. And that's the part that really was confusing, I thought, by the whole message. It does suggest to me that there's going to be a little bit of pushback from the House. I think you're going to see the Speaker and the President-elect not possibly being exactly on the same page. But I agree with Ed. At the end of the day, the person that won this election was Donald Trump. And that's the agenda that has to go forward.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, that's a relief, because I was afraid there was so much confusion, and I was just hoping it wasn't conscious, if you will, resistance to the leadership of the man who did get a mandate, and that, of course, the president-elect.
Well, I would have, Lou, I would have thought that this was '94 with the contract with America, where you had Speaker Gingrich saying we've got 100 days. This is not that case. We had a presidential election where the top of the ticket had an agenda.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not only that, this election went deep. This election not only basically helped us hold the Senate and hold as many House members as we can, it went into the gubernatorial races, it went into the legislative races, and this candidacy helped immeasurably the Republicans get elected.
Yeah, and I think that's a very important point. Donald Trump turned out to have coattails, and people like Kelly Ayotte, are sitting there sort of sucking wind right now because she chose to early disassociate herself from Donald Trump. And the other victims of the election of 2016 were pretty much in the same boat, weren't they, Randy?
Yes, they absolutely were. Literally, what they didn't get was America wants change. They want to know that, in fact, change is coming, and there's going to be real change. That's why we saw the Brexit states break the way they did. And I'll just remind you, Lou, I told you on October 26th that Donald Trump was going to win. Remember that? I was calling you from Kansas City at that day, and I said, he's going to win this. He's going to win it with the Brexit states, and that's what happened. But the media just lives in literally an echo chamber. They think if they repeat something long enough, often enough, like Hillary's going to win, the transitions in chaos, that somehow it becomes true. Well, it doesn't. They have no better idea of what's going on in Trump Plaza than they did what was going on in the country prior to the election.
Well, I think that that's absolutely true. And you did call it, what was that, 2 weeks before the election?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I called it. No, I better not. You know what? This is one of those things. The first,
Doesn't matter.
First liar loses.
We were all there. we were all there.
I can remember. Never mind.
Whatever.
Randy.
I just remember your viewers all writing me saying, that's a pretty bold prediction. I go, not really. If you look at what Reince Priebus had done in the ground operation, and remember what you kept saying to me, Randy, the RNC better deliver on the ground. Did we deliver?
You did. You know, you did deliver, and I've said on this broadcast a number of times, but I am delighted to say it again. Reince Priebus did what he said he would do, and I do admit I was somewhat skeptical. I was very skeptical because of, well, past experience, if you will. But the fact is, he delivered. The RNC delivered, and to that I say thank you. And on behalf of a grateful citizen, thank you, thank you, thank you, Lord.
And he will deliver as chief of staff. He's going to move this agenda forward.
Yes, he will.
Good deal. Yeah. All right. I'm taking that as a guarantee, gentlemen. Thanks so much. Randy Evans, Ed Rollins, appreciate it.
Thank you.
A group of technology giants are now lobbying the president-elect to enact immigration reform. Facebook, Google, Twitter, and Amazon are among 40 companies. They've sent an open letter to Mr. Trump asking for an increase in H-1B visas for high-skilled workers. But the nation needs just the opposite, folks. And I can't believe those companies weren't paying attention to the presidential election and listening to Mr. Trump on the issue. American workers have been losing jobs to foreigners on H-1B visas for years now. Some even had to train their replacements as a condition of their severance. It happened at Disney, at Intel, Cisco, Bank of America, Best Buy, Pfizer, countless other companies, and by the way, many of them technology companies. Fortunately, Mr. Trump has made tougher immigration policies a central theme of his campaign and putting the American worker and his or her family into a primary position in his policies. America first. That means Americans first. That's a happy thing. We're coming right back with much more. Stay with us. President-elect Trump building his winning team ready to drain the swamp in Washington.
I want the entire corrupt Washington establishment to hear the words we all are about to see, and we will drain the swamp.
Vice President-elect Pence backing his boss's promise, removing lobbyists from the Trump transition team. And conservatives uniting to defend Trump's chief strategist and advisor, Steve Bannon, from the mob of left-wing liars on Capitol Hill and in the media. We'll take all of this up with best-selling author, business associate, and Bannon's good friend, Peter Schweizer. He joins me here next. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Democrats now calling on the president-elect to fire Steve Bannon, his former campaign CEO, who he recently appointed to be his chief strategist and senior advisor in the White House. A letter signed by 169 congressional Democrats citing Bannon's claim in July that Breitbart News, which he had headed, had become the platform of the alt-right. What's wrong with that? And Bannon's resume demonstrates clearly otherwise. In addition to being a former executive at Breitbart, Bannon, a former naval officer, a Goldman Sachs investment banker, an MBA from Harvard, an executive producer in Hollywood. Breitbart editor Joel Pollack says Bannon is a conservative national hero. Now, I'm not sure I'd go that far, but we'll see. Our next guest says Steve Bannon is a straight shooter. He's known Bannon for 12 years. And joining me now, Peter Schweizer. He's the president of the Government Accountability Institute, also executive producer of Clinton Cash, the documentary film based on his best-selling book, Clinton Cash. Great to see you, Peter.
Thanks, Lou. Thanks for having me.
I love 169 Democrats sending a letter off to the president-elect saying that they would like to change his selection for advisor, chief strategist, for whatever else, and please just throw the keys to the White House to us. Do you
That's
mind?
right. That's
I mean,
right.
that's idiotic on any level.
No, it is. I mean, these 169 Democrats just want to deny Trump the opportunity to have his chief strategist, the guy that helped organize the campaign, that helped focus the campaign. Look, I've known Steve Bannon for 12, 14 years. It's absurd, the suggestion that he is racist, that he's anti-Semitic. I wouldn't associate with a person like that. And I've seen him operate in all of those spheres. I saw him operate in Hollywood. I've seen him operate in the context of Breitbart News. I've seen him on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. There is not a racist, bigoted bone in this man's body.
By the way, not a single person has come forward to substantiate the charges at all.
No,
I mean, there
that's
is
right.
no one.
That's right.
And I've known Steve Bannon, I want to say, for, I'm going to say about 10 years, maybe 12. And he is a first-class human being.
Yes.
He's sharp, smart as a Dickens, hard-working, I mean, indefatigable. Although I think a campaign can test indefatigable.
Right.
I can't believe I actually said the word correctly twice. But anyway, he's a great guy.
No, he is. He is. And here's the thing.
And even if he weren't,
yeah.
He's the president-elect's choice.
That's right.
And it's up to one person only, whether or not he stays where he is. And I think I can't imagine a better choice for the role.
No, I think you're exactly right, Lou. And here's the thing. You know, this country, the focus so much is on racial division. In Steve's view, the big challenge in America is not racial division, it's class division. All of the bad decisions that have been made by the permanent political class in Washington and the wealthy in this country, whether it was the financial crisis in 2008, whether it's these foreign military wars, whether it's the problem with illegal immigrant crime, in none of those cases are the brunt of those bad policy decisions ever borne by the elite. Right. They're borne by middle-class Americans. And what frustrates them...
The elites get walls, the rest of us don't.
That's exactly right. And also, you know, look at Wall Street. Who suffered in 2008? It was ordinary Americans with pension funds and 401ks. Wall Street got bailed out. Middle-class Americans didn't. That's what motivates Steve Bannon. That's, by the way, why the governing elite in Washington doesn't like him.
All right, now I've got to tell you the real reason I like Steve Bannon. Like me, he's a damn populist and a conservative.
Yeah.
And history shows, as Donald Trump has demonstrated, that is the correct direction for our history, the right side of history, if you will. And for him to be denied to Donald Trump because of some sort of nastiness on the part of the left, I mean, when are they going to give it up and say he's the president-elect? This is no longer a campaign. Right. Or are we going to be in a permanent campaign, a permanent contest for power in this country led by George Soros and his ilk?
I fear we are. I mean, look, that's where things are headed. They're challenging the legitimacy of this election, which is absurd. I mean, this is the system we have. And
how about the idiots who now have decided an electoral college system?
Yeah, they don't like the results. After more than 200 years of history, they want to change it. It's ridiculous.
Peter Schweitzer, you're a good friend of Steve Bannon. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lou.
Thanks so much. Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. Do you believe the GOP remains beholden to the Chamber of Commerce and Business Roundtable despite this anti-establishment election? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. We'd like to hear from you. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. And on Wall Street today to bring you up to date. The Dow snapped a 7-day winning streak. The Dow down 55 points. The S&P 3 points lower on the day. The NASDAQ up 19. Volume on the big board dropping down to 3.8 billion shares. The dollar index hitting a 13.5-year high before closing higher for a 8th straight session. The largest reserve of recoverable crude oil discovered in West Texas, the Wolfcamp Shale Formation. It's estimated to hold some $900 billion worth of oil. Hallelujah. A reminder to listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast on the Salem Radio Network. A few thoughts now on President Obama's penchant for controversial remarks, even when abroad. Some would say, especially when abroad. President Obama, in the early days of his presidency, famously went on that global apology tour. And now he's on his final foreign trip, a farewell tour, if you will, with an odd itinerary, visiting Greece, Germany, and Peru. In Athens today, before moving on to Berlin, President Obama stepped up his criticism of his soon-to-be successor.
The next American president and I could not be more different. Faced with this new reality where cultures clash, it's inevitable that some will seek a comfort in nationalism or tribe or ethnicity. So this impulse to pull back from a globalized world is understandable. If people feel that they're losing control of their future, they will push back.
That sounded a lot like his famous bitter clingers talk. Of course, this isn't the first time the president has hit Trump while abroad. Earlier this year in Vietnam, President Obama guaranteed that audience, who likely weren't as interested in American presidential politics as much as Mr. Obama, that Americans wouldn't make the, quote, mistake of electing Trump. In Japan, he said Trump's proposal showed either, quote, ignorance of world affairs or a cavalier attitude, end quote. Now, that wasn't nice, was it? Especially for a president who had been critical of his predecessor for insulting him when abroad. When Mr. Obama was running for the White House back in 2008, he accused then-President Bush of launching a sad and false political attack, as he put it, while he was in Israel. President Obama has frequently apologized for and criticized this nation's actions while he traveled the world from France and Turkey and Cairo and Hiroshima. He's found other ways to annoy his fellow citizens, though. He loved to bow to foreign leaders in Saudi Arabia, Japan, and China. There is comfort, though, in times passing. 64 days until Donald Trump takes the oath of office. Godspeed. Now, the quotation of the evening, this from the Iron Lady herself, Margaret Thatcher, who said, quote, "If my critics saw me walking over the Thames River, they would say it was because I couldn't swim." We're coming right back. Trump said his election would be a Brexit-like surprise. Well, maybe a little more. This is how he said it the day before the election.
We are going to win. We are going to have one of the great victories of all time. This is going to be Brexit times 50.
Like Trump, my next guest said we were due for our own Brexit in this country. Mr. Brexit, Nigel Farage, joins me next to talk about Trump's historic victory and the UK's dramatic growth and prosperity spurt in the wake of Brexit, despite all of those naysayers. Well, the UK economy is rolling right along. Britain's unemployment rate falling to the lowest level in 11 years, 3 months after their vote to exit the European Union. The unemployment rate edging down 0.1%, 4.8% in the July-September period. The number of people in the workforce rising by 49,000. And our next guest, well, rumors are today he could be headed to the House of Lords after leading the British campaign to exit the European Union. And he just this past weekend met with Donald Trump, the president-elect, over the weekend. Joining me now, the interim leader of the UK Independence Party, member of the European Parliament, Nigel Farage. Great to have you with us, Nigel. And congratulations. Should I be calling you Sir Nigel, or are we at that point yet?
No. I mean, there is a rumour, that the Prime Minister did not put down in Parliament today that I might be going to the House of Lords. All I can say is I've heard nothing of it, so there is absolutely no need, Lou, to call me my noble lord at this stage.
Well, but you are such a noble fellow and a proven leader that I love the sound of it. And if anybody deserves it, in my opinion, it is you. And I do have to say, though, there might be some strain there with your populist vein and nature, and of course the high and mighty of the Lords.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose there is the impression that if you're in the House of Lords, you perhaps lost touch with the common people. Look, I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen in terms of them giving me anything. But I tell you what I have got as a reward today. What I have got is the unemployment figures, which shows that despite all the complaints and all the moaning, we had Remain voters protesting on the streets of London, Ramonas, as we call them. And I have a feeling they're the very same people that were flown to New York to protest outside the Trump Tower the other day. Well, I think they're the same people.
Well, they could well be.
We were told that, well, I'm sure they are, but we were told that terrible things would happen to us. And actually, unemployment's coming down. Growth is going up. New house building is at near record levels. Manufacturing figures are good. The stock market's relatively strong. This idea that after a vote for Brexit we'd fall off a cliff is absolute, complete rubbish.
The fearmongers,
and that, is reward enough for me, frankly.
You bet. Well, the fearmongers and the attacks right now against Donald Trump, as you know, you just met with him, as I said, to our audience over the weekend. I mean, the fearmongering, the attacks have, if anything, picked up on the part of the national left-wing media in this country. The president-elect is usually accorded a honeymoon, not Donald Trump. He is the target of more venom and bile and outright nastiness on the part of the left-wing media than I've ever seen.
Well, I think there was a parallel. I think when Ronnie Reagan got elected back in 1980, it wasn't dissimilar. There was a narrative with Ronnie that he was stupid, that he was a B-list movie actor. Yeah, and
with an
everyone
itchy trigger finger on the trigger of the nuclear arsenal, all of that. You're right. But this is something different. This is something different. And by the way, in the midst of this, we're watching The stock market, Wall Street, is roaring ahead. It is, without any question, a Trump rally. The dollar moving higher than it's been in more than a decade. I mean, it's extraordinary stuff.
Well, I mean, you know, I was privileged that the president-elect gave me time at the weekend to sit and talk with him. I mean, I really was, because he's a very, very busy man. But it's pretty clear, isn't it, that what Trump wants to do is to get rid of excessive corporation tax and bring hundreds of billions of dollars back into the USA, cut taxes for individuals and build incentives. He wants to have an energy boom, almost an energy revolution, to give, you know, cheap energy that'll help manufacturing industry. I mean, everything about the Trump program is to do with growth and jobs. And you know what? It's about helping ordinary Americans, not just the big corporates. And, you know, it's for some of those reasons that I backed him, Lou, during this campaign. This guy, he may be rich himself, but that's frankly irrelevant. I genuinely believe, having met him before, having spent time with him this weekend, that he is on the side of ordinary, decent people. And I feel very optimistic for America's future.
And as you and all of your friends in the UK who voted with you demonstrated, he is also, and all of his followers, on the right side of history. Nigel, it is great of you to spend time with us. We wish you well. And if I may say, Sir Nigel, it's awfully good to see you again. Look forward to our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. The question is, do you believe the Republican Party remains beholden to the Chamber of Commerce and Business Roundtable on Capitol Hill, despite the anti-establishment election? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Joining me now, Pastor Robert Jeffress, member of the Faith Advisory Council for Donald Trump, pastor at First Baptist Church in Dallas. Thanks for being with us, Pastor. I'm just, I got just to this side of swearing about that. I mean, these people are just, I mean, I can't even understand them. I can't relate to them. There are, I call them daffodils. Somebody today called them buttercups. What are we to do with this kind of intolerance, this kind of excessive, well, offensiveness? I mean, are they really this noble and highly evolved and sensitive that I just can't quite comprehend them?
Well, I mean, they're millennials, Lou, and millennials think if they whine about something, well, it is, but they think if they whine about something long enough, it will change things. If they whine about their grades in college, their teacher will give in and change them. They think if they whine about this election, somehow it's going to change. Guess what? It's not going to change.
Well, I want to talk about these anti-Trump protesters that have taken to the streets all around the country. From colleges, we had a couple of high schools, for crying out loud, staging walkouts. You know, again, speaking of highly evolved, I mean, they must be in high school to be coordinating their walkouts. These people are obviously coordinated. They're obviously directed, and they are being so directed by the left wing and most likely nonprofits and organizations associated with and funded by the money of one George Soros.
Well, that's right. And if you look at some of the protesters, for example, in Oregon that were arrested, I think half of those arrested hadn't even bothered to vote. And I tell you, if you didn't vote or you threw away your vote in this election, you forfeited your right to protest the results of the election.
Well, and protesting the results of an election. I mean, you're protesting democracy. You didn't like it, so noted. Now go sit down and get your education, is what seems to me to be the proper response. I want to talk about what's happening with you. A protest organizer by the name of Dominique Alexander, protesting your church, demonstrating. Is he going to demonstrate again?
They did Saturday night. They did again, I believe, Monday night. And they say they're coming back Sunday. And Lou, what they're protesting is, first of all, they hate Donald Trump and the fact that I supported him. And secondly, they hate the fact that our church bases its beliefs on the Bible and not political correctness. And what your viewers need to know about Dominique Alexander is he's the same guy who organized the Dallas police protest this summer, during which 5 police officers were killed here in Dallas. He doesn't like Donald Trump's hate rhetoric or my hate rhetoric. And yet, Lou, this guy just a few years ago was charged with causing serious bodily harm to the 2-year-old son of his girlfriend. And he's concerned about my rhetoric. That is gross hypocrisy. He's nothing but a thug.
A thug, a hater, and frankly, deplorable. He's not in any way, though, interfering with your flock, with those going to your church or you, correct?
He's not yet. He's staged protests before, and they're very lackluster. And look, our people are very kind. They're not haters. In the past, when we've had protesters, our people take coffee and donuts to them. So we're going to go on doing the Lord's business and not be deterred by this.
Well, Pastor, you are an example to us all, and we appreciate you being with us. Always great to see you. Pastor
Thank
Robert
you,
Jeffress.
Lou. Appreciate it.
Up next, at least 11 left-wing mayors across the country vow to keep their sanctuary city policies intact.
To be clear about what Chicago is, it always will be a sanctuary city.
Well, that's good, because he can't seem to guarantee much else about the city of Chicago, which is aflame with violence. And the fight is on. Mike Gallagher, Rebecca Rose Woodland join us to assess whether or not a mayor can actually back up those claims to keep sanctuary city status. We're coming right back. In our online poll last night, we asked you, which do you prefer, Trump's policy of America first or Obama's wariness of crude nationalism? 97% of you say Trump's America first policy. And joining me now, Mike Gallagher, host of the Mike Gallagher Show on the Salem Radio Network, Fox News contributor, defense attorney Rebecca Rose Woodland. Great to have you here, Rebecca. And you, Mike, as well. I didn't mean to in any way.
Slide it already, right off the bat.
What can I say?
America first, and the president abroad talking about crude nationalism. What in the world is wrong with this man?
You know, it's funny because I have a friend who was in Greece listening to his speech, and she said to me, what is happening? Why is he doing this? And I said, look, we have a new president coming in. Everything is going to come into power in a proper way. The news media could say whatever they want, but my understanding is very clearly, I spoke to Pam Bondi just now, that she's on the transition team. There's no dissension.
Pam Bondi,
You're
Attorney General,
absolutely
State
right.
of Florida,
Yes.
on the Trump transition.
It's particularly odious that President Obama was fairly gracious here in the United States. He really was, and I was giving him credit. And then he goes overseas and starts knocking this idea of crude nationalism. Listen, guys, just hunker down, because if we think the press was unfair during the campaign, what do you think the mainstream media is going to do during a Trump administration?
I really did expect him to back off.
No,
this is the president-elect. No, I'm serious.
They won't, Lou. They're hurt and they're mad and they're angry.
You know what? I'm so tired of people being hurt and
I know.
mad
I
and
know.
angry.
Move
and upset.
on.
I know.
You know.
He won constitutionally fair and square.
But do you think they will? Do you really think that?
I think that they have. I think they have an obligation to. I don't think that's a volitional matter. As the journalists they claim to be, they're not there to be advocates. I mean, we're talking about the news hole of the New York Times, the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos, and Carlos Slim. It looks like they're, sending everything telepathically right onto
they admitted they don't want. They're going to advocate. So, that
the Times said they had reformed. They were going to be good guys again. Didn't last long, did it?
Well, don't you think that creates divisiveness already? It's going to continue the divisiveness.
We've got such a divided country already.
No.
Donald Trump is our hope for unification. To bring it together. And this is a battle. If we got to have it,
Let's have it.
God he's the president of the United States to lead it.
And look at the tone that he's delivered already. I mean, I love that they were screaming, why isn't he denouncing bad things that are being said to Muslims? And he did. 60 Minutes, he looked in the camera and said, stop it, stop it.
He said, if there are people in his movement, stop it.
And he was very
But there's
forceful.
not a single word from Leslie Stahl, 60 Minutes, to say, by the way, George Soros, cut it out.
Right, right.
Grow up.
Right. Or dragging Trump supporters out of their car in Chicago and beating them, and beating people on the subway here in New York if they got a red hat on.
They're always tough when they're in mobs. That's always when you can tell the tough.
That's a bully.
Yeah. Bully. I don't get with bully. I mean, I don't even like the term. There are other more suitable terms that I can't use right now. Let's turn to this business with sanctuary cities. Will the the Trump administration be able to obviate what the Obama administration has created, which is even more sanctuaries with greater rewards as a result of the federal taxpayer dollars going to them?
Legally, the states do not have to listen to the federal government on immigration issues if they do not take money. But practically speaking, they need the federal funding. So you're going to be in a position where you're going to have to negotiate with
Do you think he can get it done?
I do. I absolutely do think he could get it done, because I think we need to go back to the core issue. The core issue isn't all immigrants, everyone who's here, we're sending back and forth.
Core issue is law and order. Listen,
criminals.
law and order.
Lou,
Law and order.
Rahm Emanuel,
Exactly.
the mayor of Chicago, literally stood there and said, "We want you to know